You have a Galaxy S25 Edge handset. It is the Samsung slim, thin phone.
Yep.
It is a segment. So you've got Mark's reporting there on a 17 Air. Again, why does it matter?
For Samsung, it was clearly a stepping stone to a much thinner Fold 7. They didn't put a lot of marketing behind the product. To your point, is a segment. It's not consumers are screaming for thinner phones. But we also haven't seen much difference in design for a long time. You know, all the phones kind of look the same. The thing that changes the most is the back, where the camera is. So it'd be interesting to see if the rumors are right that Apple is changing that part of the phone, because it's going to be very obvious that you have a new model of your iPhone. But yes, the thinner phone is something that vendors seem to be doing to lead their way to a foldable, which would make me wrong about Apple doing a foldable iPad before a foldable iPhone, which was always my theory.
Your theory on foldable, though, is one that we listen to, because eventually we do anticipate a foldable phone from Apple, but they lag there behind competition. And of course, everyone says they lag behind on generative AI. Does that matter to a consumer?
Sorry, I missed the last of the question,
Carolina?
Apologies.
Does that matter to the consumer, the Gen AI lacking?
I don't think that consumers are going into a store asking for AI, and I think what plays in Apple's favor, although they don't have a ton of time, is the fact that there's the assurance that when they're ready, the software will come with all the phones that you already have. So if consumers are drawn to this year's models because of a change in hardware design, they know, they have peace of mind in going in and buying now, knowing that when Apple Intelligence redesign will happen, they will have access to it.
Carolina, what do we know from third-party data, from consumer trends, about what happened after iPhone 16 launch, particularly on Pro? You heard Mark explain that whatever happens with pricing, the carriers will come out and say, trade in your handset. Lots of people get really frustrated, particularly in the USA, where they say, I only just got a 16 Pro. Is there going to be enough in the capability to drive me, even with a trade-in, to upgrade?
Yes, last year's upgrade from the carriers were very aggressive. The trade-in pricing was really good for consumers. I think, as always, you have a segment of the market that is going to hold on to their phone no matter what. Where it really makes a difference is the early adopters that will get that bump. Usually, the hardware redesign really drives a lot of upgrades, and I think that between what we've seen as rumor colors and then the thin design, people will get into the store. Whether or not they'll decide to buy, we'll see, depending on pricing, as you just discussed with Mark.
May I ask in a quick fire round, how many iPhone events have you been to?
Oh my God, since 2007, so
many.
A long time.
We always say this is the biggest event for Apple in the year. I put it back to basics. iPhone is more than half of revenue. But this idea of a 17 generation with a thin, an Air thrown in the middle, where do you think that ranks in the history of the sort of storied Apple launches?
I think to me, if it's true that this is a stepping stone to foldable, is a moment that is going to redefine the next generation. It'll be interesting to see how much they get into the architecture of the actual device, what have they changed, how they are redesigned. Making something thin is really hard when it comes to the phone, from battery size, to not compromise your battery life, which was the biggest drawback for Samsung. And then the camera capability. You cannot have the same camera set as you do on a Pro Max. So how do you reinvent your camera to make sure that there's no compromise for people that care?
Carolina, talk to us about caring on wearables. How important are the new iterations of AirPods, of the watches, going to be for you?
I think they're really important, and there is a reason why Apple always does these three products together, because it is the trifecta of what being mobile is. I do think that the heart rate monitoring on the AirPods, if true, is going to be really interesting for Apple. There are people who don't want to wear a watch, or people that cannot afford to add that to their list of products that they own. And so having AirPods allowing you to work out and do what you need, you will see, my guess is a strong upgrade from regular AirPods to AirPod Pro. And so nice revenue uptick for Apple.
What about to the bottom line? What about pushing up the price points of these?
It'll be interesting to see if they're pushing up the price point. I agree totally with Mark that they cannot blame it on tariff. If they do, there is the precedent of both Google and Samsung not raising prices. So it'll be really hard for them to do that. I also do think that they're a moment where they want to make sure that their install base upgrades to the latest devices so that they have the latest chipset. That at the end of the day is what is going to matter for Apple Intelligence and AI in general.
Carolina, when you're sat in the Steve Jobs Theatre, what is the one thing, the absolute focus for you in that moment that you're tracking?
I'm still looking at how Apple brings everything together so that consumers stay tied to the ecosystem. That is going to be their biggest ticket to winning when it comes to AI.